So we, the past few days, we explored the Rambam's Akdama to Shemona Prakim, and now the Rambam is finally gonna, he's starting off. So let's see. Ki nefesh ha'adam. Okay, so first of all, this is the philosophical. This Pirkei scares off a lot of people because it's a shtickle hardcore philosophy, and it's the philosophy of the soul. That's the sugya that he's going to discuss today. That is, what is the soul? Now, why is this important? So before we start, let's just say let's give a shtickle a rundown of what he's going to say. So it's important. The entire underlying analogy that goes through the Shemona Prakim is that the Rambam compares the health and function and dysfunction, disease, cure of the soul to that of the body, which is very, it's interesting. The Rambam is going to be a doctor one day, not yet, and it's interesting that it's not his own analogy, but that is sort of the thesis in the entire Shemona Prakim. Kaloimar, if you come to a doctor and and the person is having a hard time with his eyesight, or a person is limping, right? So if someone that doesn't understand medicine is going to say, okay, this person has the issue with his foot, so let's cure his foot. But the problem is that the whole body is connected, and the blood, and this might not even be a foot issue, right? It could be a blood clot, and then the last thing we're worrying about is the foot, right? Because that means that there's a blood issue, and then this person can have a stroke. So someone that doesn't understand medicine is not looking at it in the entire picture, and therefore he not only won't know how to cure it, he just doesn't even understand what he's looking at. You're not looking at a foot issue. You're not looking at something that maybe could go in passing, and it's something that you could hope is going to heal by itself. There's an underlying fundamental issue that this person has to make radical life changes in order for him to cure himself. Now, if you apply that analogy to the soul, so the Rambam is saying is that before we do anything, we have to understand the soul. What is the soul? Okay, why is it important to know what the soul is? Because we know that the tachlis, the ultimate goal, why we're here, is to have a relationship with the Eibishter, to be masik, to have an intellectual relationship. And it's not only intellectual, obviously, it's, as we saw, that the way to attain a certain intellectual hasaga in the Rebbeinu Shalom is, I mean more the way afterwards, is after a person is truly masik the Eibishter in an emistig way, and he has that relationship, then he naturally will become a different type of person, and so on, right? So now, the Rambam already said the only way you could, the so someone who wants to be a chassid, and someone who wants to reach Ruach HaKodesh and Nevuah, and he wants to reach the ultimate goal, the only way to do that is by being a chassid. Why? So that's what the Rambam said. Tikkun hanefesh b'chorban haguf. The way we build our relationship with the Rebbeinu Shalom, whether it's in our mind, through our minds, right, or through our heart, and whatever it is, it's the only way to do that is through our own self, right? Because you are you. So you're you. So you're a vessel. You're a channel through which you have to create a connection. Now, the device you're using is yourself. Now, you have to understand yourself. Because if you're a dysfunctional self, then it won't be able to, you won't be able to, it's not going to work. The connection is not going to work. You're not going to get the desired results. Just like if you're trying to use a microwave. It could only do its function if all the pieces work. Now, if you're going to try to fix it and you don't understand the entire machine, you won't be able to fix it because you have it's, the reason why it's not warming up food, it's not because, the time is off. It's because there's something in the entire, the heating system element, and maybe even the heating element is working. Just the cooling element in the microwave is not working, and then it won't either work, right? So if you wanna have a desired result, then you need to have a functional machine. If you want to have a functional machine, you need to understand the machine. Okay? Now, being that you you're the subject matter over here, right? Because you're the one that's striving to build a relationship with Ribbono Shel Olam and get to a point where you could intellectually have a capacity of understanding the truth under the entire Bria. Understanding Hashem, understanding His ways, understanding His relationship with people, understanding His relationship with the Torah and with Klal Yisrael and His general vision and whatever, right? That is the ultimate goal that we have. So, once we understand that that's the goal, and we understand that the machinery we're using is ourselves, so you have to understand the soul of a person. Now, once we understand the soul, you're going to understand what makes a healthy soul and what makes a dysfunctional soul. Because even if you understand the soul, right? So once you understand it, and you understand, part of understanding is understanding all the buttons, understanding the triggers, understanding what makes it healthy and what makes it dysfunctional, then you're going to know, I don't know what we're up to now, 4 or 5, is how to heal it, how to cure it. What do you do when you're dealt, or when you're dealing with a unhealthy, sick, dysfunctional soul, which we all are? What do you do now? So now, again, let's compare this to a doctor's office. You come in and your foot hurts. Every little kid knows if your foot hurts, I don't know, put an ice pack on it. A doctor looks at it and he says, oh, this could be life-threatening. My mother always does that. My mother is a nurse, brilliant medical mind. Yeah, but every time someone has ingrown toenail, it's probably a blood clot, and go to the emergency room. You have 3 hours to live. But that if you have an extensive and complete medical knowledge, then you look at things very differently. You don't look at them symptomatically. You look at the shayrish, right? You look at the source. You don't try to heal the symptoms, and that's the problem. Because sometimes, if we could apply it very simply, if a person speaks lashon hara, okay, we're not talking about a person like all of us that has sometimes, you have a good lashon, but there's a guy that's a lashon hara speaker, right? So someone could say, shut your mouth. Take care of, you have a shmiras haloshen issue. The Rambam is saying this person doesn't have a shmiras haloshen issue. This person is a sick human being. His soul is sick. He's a dysfunctional human being. There's something, the person has a blood clot. It's not his foot, it comes out on his foot. Now, if you want to cure this person, you don't tell him to learn shmiras haloshen. Now again, obviously, step 1, you have to stop the bleeding. But in general, this person needs a major makeover. This person needs a life-changing diet and a life-changing regimen that, ultimately that could bring to this person to be a healthy, functional human being again. But if we try to cure the shmiras haloshen aspect and we don't appreciate that there's an entire machine that we need to heal, then we're just not going to get anywhere. So that is what the Rambam says in the second paragraph. Okay? So really, let's just learn the second paragraph first. V'ata yodeya. Now you know, shetikun hamidos omnom hu ripoy hanefesh v'koychaseh. Tikkun hamidus, working on your midus, working on your midus, is the healing of the soul and the soul's faculties. Just like a doctor that heals the body, just like a physician, right? Just like a physician. He has to know the body in its entirety, and then he has to know not only the body in its entirety, also the parts of it, right? He has to know every part of the guf. What's going to make it sick? And he knows to stay away from it. What's going to make him healthy? And he should guide towards it. Someone who heals the soul and he wants to fix the midas of the soul, the midas, which is going to cure the soul, and there's a two-way relationship, right? Because you have to work on the midas to heal the soul, and then and then a healthy soul. It creates, fine, okay, let's let that. So if you want to cure your soul, and if you want to fix your machine, so you need to first know is, what is the machine, how does it work, and what makes it work better, and what makes it sick. Now let's go back to the first paragraph. In the first paragraph, the Rambam is mainly coming, this is a little polemic. The Rambam is coming to argue with a previous opinion of some early doctor. It's to the best of I tried searching this. It's not, there are two great doctors that the Rambam refers to. and that is Hippocrates, which is the great, the great doctor of antiquity, and Galen. Those are the two. Hippocrates, the Rambam actually wrote a sefer, a parish on his books, and Galen is the great doctor of the Middle Ages. So both Greeks, obviously, and so, but I don't know. I don't think it's any of them because I searched. I couldn't find any of them saying this. So the Rambam is coming lahoitzi midatom because they say that a person has three separate souls. So every person doesn't have one soul; they have three separate souls. So the souls that they have they have a physical soul, right? That's the growing physical soul. And then there's a vital soul, so to speak, which is basically what makes it alive, and makes it do things that live things do. And then there's the intellectual soul, so to speak, right? So you have three souls. One, you could say, the growing one is everything that lives, including plant life, have in common. They all grow, they all eat, they all digest, they all give out, certain things that are not good for them, right? Basically, if you apply the nutrition type of soul, so that would be soul number one. Then you have the vital soul, which is sort of what you call a chai, what a person has in common with every living animal. And then you have the intellect. So that was the opinion of some early doctors, and some Rishonim even go with this type of perspective. And the Rambam starts by saying that that's not true. A person only has one soul. And this one unified soul, that expresses itself in different ways. Sometimes people call these extensions of the soul, these actions, the outcomes of the soul, they call them nefashis. And sometimes someone would think a person has many souls. That the doctors say that. One of the greatest doctors, he said, there are three souls: tivis, chiyunis, v'nafshis. Right? So you could call it the physical soul, the vital soul, and the intellectual soul. Upa'omim yikaru koiches v'chalokim. But the Rambam prefers to call them koiches. Right? So basically you understand that there's one soul, and that's all expresses itself, the faculties of the soul. Right? These are extensions of the soul. They're not the soul itself. So the philosophers use that term. And don't think that when they say that there are parts of the soul, they're just like a body has a physical hand and a physical foot and a liver and a kidney, so too the soul has, they're separate entities of the soul. No, it's not what it is, because the guf actually splits into, these different parts. The soul doesn't split into anything. The soul expresses itself and comes out in certain places. They just mean to say that just like the body, there's an entirety, there's something that's called the body, and that comes out in different limbs and different and different functions. So too, the soul, there's one unified soul, and that soul has various different expressions and extensions and faculties and koiches. So that's what the Rambam is. It's very important for them to understand this. Why it's so important, we're going to have to leave that for tomorrow. But, let's just read one more line, and that is, I say, says the Rambam. So again, then there was the line that we read before, why it's so important to understand what the soul is. The Rambam starts off by saying that you should know there's only one soul. Don't think that there's three different souls, like the old doctors used to say, and that's a very doctor type of thing to say, because sometimes doctors, specialize, and they like to isolate things without, it's almost counter to the analogy that it's bringing in a minute, but the doctor in this case, so this old good doctor says that a person has three souls. Now, the problem of separating a person into three different souls is that a person would make an argument that say, I'm only going to care about this soul or that soul. Well, the Rambam says that you have to deal with the entire package. You can't, let's say if you say that you want to have a healthy foot, and just the opposite. Let's say a person says, I don't care about my leg pain in this blood clot situation, right? So a person says, I don't care about leg pain. You have to understand, there is no isolated leg issue. You have an entire issue because you have one soul, you have one body, and everything is interconnected. And that's what the Rambam is trying to say. You can't come and argue that, fine, I have an issue with tithe. Fine, I have an issue with tithe. But my mind is pure, and I could daven for 8 hours straight, and I could learn, and I could do whatever I want. And these are two separate issues. What the Rambam is saying, there's no such thing. You have one soul, and it's interconnected, and all these things work together, and they work one after the other. So if you understand the nefesh adam, nefesh achasu, there's one big nefesh, and it's all interconnected, and all that you see, and the Rambam is going to split into 5, not a 3, and that we'll have to see tomorrow, is that these are all extensions of the soul. So if you have a sick soul, you gotta understand the mechanism of the soul. You have to understand the entirety of it, and you have to understand what makes it healthy and what makes it sick, and only afterwards could you treat it. And once we treat it, we can start growing and using this healthy vessel that we just created to connect and to fill it up with the Ar Hashem.